LMU has been absolutely smashing it out of the park of late. Since its initial release of the holy grail of online racing and some GT3 cars before Christmas, to a more recent release where they gave us more GT3 cars, some different track layouts, and a much praised new tyre model for its GT3s, interest in the game has, I think, pretty much tripled. Everyone, including me, thought that the biggest talking point of the first half of 2025 would be Assetto Corsa EVO. But other than some initial excitement at launch, LMU has almost completely stolen its spotlight. However, it was only around a year ago that LMU was in a similar sticky situation as it launched into early access. So what can EVO learn from LMU as it launches into its own early access? What is it that us sim racing nutters really want? Well, for me, it kind of boils down to 5 things right now for EVO. Accessibility, structure, sense of achievement, communication, and pricing. They all link in together to some extent, but let's take a look at them individually. I'll kind of tell you what I mean. Now, for me, one aspect of the games that are really similar between LMU and EVO is the core driving experience. That core element of the game where you actually just go driving around a track. They're both pretty exceptional. They're both probably leaders in the field right now in sim racing. In fact, even at this really early stage of its early access, I might even put EVO ahead of LMU in that sense. The way the game drives is really exceptional for a game that is just so young. So EVO has that right. It has that core driving experience down. It just needs to get everything around it right. Now, when it comes to accessibility, what I'm really talking about is how easy is the game just to pick up and play? What do you have to do to actually just get driving in the game? And EVO's problems really start with the home screen as far as I'm concerned. Yes, it looks very nice, and it's nice to see your car in the garage and everything, but I mean, look at this. More than 3/4 of the screen is taken up by something that it doesn't matter. It's just style over substance. I'm on triple screens, and the menus don't even fit on the screen properly because it's being pushed out by everything else. And the tabs are fairly straightforward and self-explanatory. There's nothing really wrong with them, to be honest, and you get a little description now at the bottom, which I don't think was there before, but it's been added, which is good. But this, I don't know, I just think this is, like I say, it's style over substance. Give us some proper menus. I mean, let's look at LMU's menus. They're just very functional, very easy. You know exactly what you're getting into when you click on all of them. You know where to go in the game, almost without having to think about it. That's what EVO needs to do as well. But the real problems begin when you get into trying to set all your controllers and everything up. This took me forever. I think I was here for about an hour trying to figure all this out when I first loaded into the game. This is just so clunky. I don't even know where to begin with this, to be honest. It's just very poorly laid out. These bits over here, the settings and the track IR, I'm not even sure what track IR is actually, but the settings part here, I didn't realize it was there for about half an hour, and nothing in here tells you sort of what things do. What is dynamic dampening? What is the minimum damper? What is damper gain? I mean, as experienced sim racers, you might know that, but if you're new to the game, are you gonna know? If you're new to sim racing, are you gonna know this? I wouldn't. I still don't know what half of it does, to be honest. And that's the thing. I think even experienced sim racers, we're kind of getting jaded by having to spend hours setting up a game before we can actually play it. And it just puts new players off as well. So all of this lot just needs to change for me. Just keep it simple, make it more straightforward, make it more usable, and just less style, more substance. Make it accessible. So what about structure? Well, if we look at Le Mans Ultimate and the online ranked racing that they launched before Christmas, there is a very clear, very straightforward, very simple structure to it. You have driver rating and you have safety rating. Those are the two things that you basically accumulate as you go through your career, I suppose, online in LMU. But there's also a very clear structure within the races themselves. You have daily races, weekly races, special events, online championships. And within the daily races, you've got beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And again, you just advance through these stages. There's races every hour in each one. They have varying tracks each week, varying car classes each week, and it's very, very easy just to pick the race that you want to do, jump into it. The structure is really, really easy. It feeds into the accessibility that we were talking about just now as well. It's just a very, really simple, easy, structured way of going through almost a career on LMU. But when it comes to EVO, I'm not quite sure what its structure is supposed to be. You've got these kind of online economy system that they've introduced for buying and renting cars. I don't know. I'm just a bit confused about how it's all going to fit together. And, you know, there's been a bit of a structure with the driver academy, which has been pretty straightforward to follow, although I'll go into a bit of this later on. I think it's been a bit of a letdown, that one, to be honest with you. And, you know, until they release the multiplayer part of this game, I really don't know where it's going to be going. They've got the, you know, whole online world that they're wanting to create around the Nürburgring and stuff like that. It all just seems to me that it's a little bit confused at the moment. LMU just seems to have this very clear focus of what it wants to be, where it wants to go. It's keeping it simple, whereas EVO is just a bit all over the place right now. This then feeds into my next point, which is the sense of achievement. Now, I think this is something that LMU does really, really well, actually. From, you know, the driver ranking and the safety rating, which is, it's hardly revolutionary, but, you know, it's something that you're working towards. It's something that you can be proud of, I suppose, in a way, when you earn these achievement points. And I love the little breakdowns that it does at the end of every race as well, where it shows you where you should have, or where it thinks you should have finished, and where you actually finished, and how that affects all your ratings and everything. It's nicely animated. Again, it's really simple. It breaks it down really easily for you, and it's dead easy to follow. EVO, on the other hand, even with the Driver Academy, now I was really excited about the Driver Academy because back in the day when I used to play GT2 or something like that on the PlayStation, I really loved going through all the licenses and getting the achievements and stuff. And to a certain extent, it was fun to do all these in EVO, but they just didn't make enough out of it for me. They were all very similar kind of challenges, and maybe we're going to get more in the future. I don't know. Maybe there's more of this to come. But they were all very straightforward and simple, and it was just driving around this section of the track and that section of the track and then do a whole lap. And, you know, it was broken down into 1, 2, and 3-star times that you had to get, and it was a challenge to get some of those times. It was quite good fun. But then you kind of didn't get anything for it. It didn't even, you know, there was nothing on the screen to say, hey, well done, you got this challenge. It was just, you just quit back out, and then, you know, you moved on to the next one. There was no sense of achievement to it. There was no, oh yeah, I really feel like I've done something good there. It didn't give you anything from the game. It was just, yeah, you've done it, move on to the next one. You've got to remember, this is a game at the end of the day. Yes, it's a simulation, but it's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to have fun doing it. You're supposed to have a good time, and you're supposed to feel good when you do something good, not just, oh well, on to the next. And that's what everyone needs to work on for me, because LMU's doing that. It's delivering that to a certain extent. It could probably do more, but this is something that EVO could definitely improve on. Next then is communication, and this isn't really anything to do with the game. This is a broader thing. This is to do with how I think the LMU devs have done really, really well in the last 6 months in communicating to the base where the game is going. Again, what the structure is going to be, what you're going to get, when you're going to get it. It's just been really, really good, clear communication. They've listened to people, I think, as well. They've improved the game where it needed to be improved, and they've addressed some of the issues that the game had with its very early access, and they've just brought it forward in a good pace, in a good way, but they've communicated with the base and let them know what they're going to be getting. Now, EVO doesn't necessarily do this badly, actually, to be honest. I quite like this roadmap that they've got at the when you open the game up. I would like to know a bit more about what's coming, to be honest, and exactly when. There's sort of random little stops along the way. It would be nice to know a bit more about when these things might be coming, rather than just the stages that they're going to be releasing them in. But it's not bad. I would just like to see more from them, I think. Just a bit more communication about what's coming and when. because I just think that's something that LMU has done really, really well, and it just helps engage an audience. It helps engage your audience. You know, if there's nothing happening with the game for a while, let them know in a couple of months this is what's going to be coming down the line. It just builds a bit of excitement, and EVO just feels a bit flat right now. The next one is pricing, and this could be a little bit controversial, I guess, because I actually think the way that LMU has done its pricing recently is pretty good. I like it. I really do. And there's two reasons for that. One, I think it gives flexibility, although it is slightly confusing, I suppose. But the other one is I think it gives value for money as well. So again, let me kind of get into this a little bit. Now, both games for the base game on Steam in early access right now, they both come out at about £30. So fine. You can get both base games for 30 quid. That's fine. In that sense, they're both exactly the same. Quite where EVO's gonna go down the line, I'm not quite sure, and how all its DLC is gonna come out. I can't imagine that all the DLC in EVO is gonna be free. And it's the same with LMU as well. They have released some free DLC, but others, obviously, you know, they're behind a paywall. And you can get a season pass for £40. So that's the base game for 30 and the season pass for £40. And you get all the downloadable content. Now, whether you think that a game should give DLC in early access is a debate for a different time. But as far as I'm concerned, the DLC is good value for money, and the base game is good value for money. Whether it's in early access or not, they give value. They're good products. So that's fine for me. Now, the other thing that LMU has launched recently is a subscription service. And I'm not going to go into this too much, but for a full subscription, it's about £65 a year. Now, you have to buy the base game and then access the subscription, but the subscription gives you all the downloadable content as well, and it gives you access to all the online racing championships and all the daily races and everything like that. It basically everything in LMU and in R Factor 2 you have access to for that £65 per year subscription, which is what, about £5 a month, something like that. Now, I think this is something that EVO can learn from as well, because obviously there are a lot of people that object to this subscription service, but for me, I quite like it. Now, I don't do iRacing because I think their subscription service, one, I'm not a big fan of iRacing anyway, but for me to ask you to pay a subscription and then pay for the DLC on top of that is, let's just say I'm not a fan of it, okay? LMU, on the other hand, you pay that subscription and you get everything. You get everything that you need. You get access to everything. You get all the DLC. And like I said, for me, that presents good value. So for me, EVO can learn from this. Subscriptions aren't necessarily bad as long as they're done right and as long as they're giving you value for money. People are willing to pay for a good product. And you know what? I think EVO, at least at its base, is a good product. So people may very well be willing to pay for a subscription. And then, you know, you can be flexible within that as well. So for me, you know, do what LMU does. You've got your base game, you've got your DLC, so you can put your base game and your DLC together, or you've got a subscription and you get your base game and you get your subscription, and that gets you everything. I think it's a good model, despite being slightly confusing. Now, one last little point that I want to make, and I suppose this is a kind of a point 5.5, and it might even, actually, to be honest, it might be the biggest point of all, and that is that stability is king. Ever since LMU was made stable, because for the first 6 months, I mean, I didn't play it in the first 6 months, but from everything I saw, it was an absolute nightmare with servers crashing and the game crashing, and it just did, the thing, you know, just didn't work. What LMU has done, and what the devs of LMU have done in the last 6 months, on top of everything else, is make the game stable. It still has its issues and glitches here and there, absolutely, but it is now a very, very, very playable game because it is stable. Whether it's in early access or not, forget that. It's a stable game. And that's, at the end of the day, you could have the greatest racing game or the greatest game in the world ever. If it just keeps crashing on you, nobody's going to play it. So stability is absolutely key for EVO. this is where, with it being an online game and all that, and people have already been complaining about the fact that it crashes after you've done certain races and you don't get the achievements. It really Evo has to get that right over the next 9 months or so and get it to a point where the game is not 100% stable, but 99.99% stable. So that's what I think. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Have I got that right? Have I missed something? Do you completely disagree with me? Probably. I know nothing, really, to be honest with you. This is just an opinion piece that I thought I would do because I thought it was interesting. If you did like that, please give me a thumbs up. Like I said, put something in the comments, subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much.